When someone plays a game over and over again, they usually try to find new strategies to beat the game in ways previously never imagined. While usually this means incorporating simple ideas such as not slowing down or different level routing, what if I told you there was another layer to this? What if you completely stripped the game down to its basic code and learned the very ins and outs of the game? These questions can already be answered based on years and years of research thanks to dedicated gaming enthusiasts and speedrunners alike. Today, we are going to be delving into the concept of credits warp and how speedrunners can completely destroy games by using methods that developers could have never imagined. Strap in as we look at the concept of credits warp in multiple games across multiple platforms and franchises. Let me introduce you to Credits Warp Speedruns Gone Wild. So what exactly is credits warp? Here's a definition that I have put together. Credits warp: to exploit and trick a game to take you to the end game sequence, usually done through in-game glitches or arbitrary code execution. Let's break down this definition a bit. End game sequence refers to what happens when a player beats a game. In most cases, some form of credits will display showing either parts of the game you just played, and or showing the developers behind said project. Moving on, in-game glitches is pretty self-explanatory. Doing anything in a game that was not intended by developers can be considered a glitch. This is not to be fully confused with the phrases bug and exploit though. While many people will argue what these terms truly mean, when it comes to speedrunning, individual communities generally decide what is a glitch and what is not. For example, in Super Mario World, doing a trick in Star World 1 where you can zip past these blocks is not considered a glitch and is allowed in glitchless speedruns. This is due to the fact that the community views this as more of an exploit instead. The player is exploiting the fact that only 4 yellow blocks at a time can be spinning on screen, and is using that knowledge to their advantage by spinning more blocks, which causes the previously spun ones to cease spinning and push Mario down. If you disagree with these definitions, feel free to leave a comment that maybe somebody will read. Lastly, arbitrary code execution, or ACE as we will probably call it moving forward, refers to a player being able to execute code that is not part of intended gameplay. There are many methods to performing ACE, such as using extra controllers or simply doing specific actions while the game is running. One minor tidbit before continuing as well. A common theme you will see when talking about these runs is the phrase tool assist. Tool assisted speedruns, or TAS for short, is a speedrun that is made with the use of different tools such as pausing, rewinding, slowing down, and advancing frame by frame. By using these tools, players can create hypothetical crazy speedruns that a human could never do in a real-time setting. Thanks to these tools and players who study games with said tools, many crazy discoveries are being found all the time. A lot of explanations and behind the scenes information presented here will be thanks to Tool Assist authors who dedicate their time to tearing apart these games. All the TASes mentioned today will be down in the description. Let's walk down the road of multiple speedruns that utilize a variety of exploits, glitches, arbitrary code execution, and everything in between to blast straight to the credits. This wouldn't be a proper video if I didn't mention Mario at least once. And lucky for you, we got plenty of Mario to go around. We will get to other games afterwards, but of course we have to start with one of the most infamous series in video games. While most people may cite Super Mario World when asked about credits warps, what if I told you that another Mario game had the same discovery 3 years earlier? On January 14th of 2011, Andy Mac and Mug would publish a TAS of Super Mario Land 2 6 golden coins that would clock in at 2 minutes and 28 seconds, beating previous any percent TASes by roughly 20 minutes. How is this done exactly? In Macro Zone 1, you will see the TAS stop right on top of a pipe and wait to be killed. What actually happened is, Mario died on the same frame as he was starting to go down the pipe. You will then see the TAS make their way to Pumpkin Zone 1. Due to what was done in Macro Zone, when entering the level, Mario falls below said level in a similar fashion to how Mario would have gone down the pipe if he hadn't died previously. This trick is dubbed the carryover glitch. If an event occurs on the same frame you exit the level, said event will happen when you enter the next one. This also applies to power-ups, midways, and bubbles. This trick is only possible in the original 1.0 version of the game. The garbage that you see here is actually the game's memory being visualized. The TAS proceeds to fall on a block that through manipulation beats the level. Pumpkin Zone 1 is entered again and a mushroom is grabbed. Right away, the pipe glitch from before is performed once more. A mushroom was grabbed due to needing to crush a block later in the level. The explanation for the following is going to be oversimplified for the sake of video length and minimizing complexity. Mario gets sent into the garbage again, and the TAS makes their way through the game's memory. One silly mistake here, and the run is completely over. Part of the memory you go through is the ROM, or read-only memory. Since you can't write to it, if you break a block here, the game immediately crashes. The goal here is to break a block that corresponds to the memory address 0xA2D5, which is an unused debug flag that starts the credit sequence when a level loads. Later in the year, during October, an improved TAS will be released that saved another 20 seconds. Most of the time was saved by doing the carryover glitch in Macro Zone, but also in the beginning tutorial level as well. This allowed the player to instantly beat the level when re-entering. The earliest documented run from a human performing this is from Mug 1991 on September 16, 2012. Due to being harder to perform and being unrealistic in a real-time setting, Mug doesn't go for the Macro Zone setup done in the TAS. He simply beats Pumpkin Zone 1 as intended, and then proceeds to do the pipe glitch that leads to this garbled mess. Watching a human navigate through all this garbage successfully in real time is quite mesmerizing. Mug was able to beat the game in 3 minutes and 40 seconds, being 25 minutes faster than the intended any percent route. Credits Warp was now the any percent category, and the intended any percent route from this point forward has been called any percent glitchless. If you are interested in the glitchless speedrun, I recommend my 1-hour video on its entire history. In 2014, the TAS would be torn apart and ultimately would finish in 41 seconds. A pause glitch was discovered and was done in the first level to perform arbitrary code execution, which led to the credits faster than ever imagined. Obviously, this version of Credits Warp is not human viable. The real-time record would be lowered through optimizations a couple years later in 2016. Interest in the category rose again after SlashInfinity would attempt the run for the 12-hour challenge, where you learn a game as quickly as possible. Around that time, Oh Dear would get a 327, and a month later, SlashInfinity would lower this even further by doing the carryover glitch in the tutorial level, just like the improved TAS did. From this point forward, runners would also go for the carryover glitch in Macro Zone, just like the TAS, and the record would get lowered and lowered, getting really close to under the 3-minute mark. I would love to describe each individual record, but since we have other games to talk about, between 2016 and 2017, Oh Dear, SlashInfinity, and The Squirrel would optimize this run with new records back and forth. Oh Dear would ultimately reign supreme, and on December 21st, 2017, would beat Super Mario Land 2 in 2 minutes and 42 seconds. And as of making this is still where the run currently stands. Moving quickly to a non-Mario title, back in April of 2018, Twitch user Revenge2 was playing Zool, Ninja of the Nth Dimension for the Sega Master System, exclusively only released in Europe. He was playing a challenge where he was trying to beat every single game released on the platform. Revenge entered level 4-2, and everything seemed to continue as normal. It wasn't until midway through the level that he climbed a wall, and proceeded to get hit by an enemy right as he was about to bounce. The game suddenly glitched out, and to his surprise, was greeted with the ending screen an entire world early. TAS sisters would get wind of this, and on December 27th of 2019, a TASer by the name The 8-Bit Beast would release a TAS that shows a way to reproduce the glitch in 2-1. The reason this could not be done in World 1 is due to a lack of bouncy surfaces. This run clocked in at just over 3 minutes. Just a few days later on New Year's, Astro would do some casual attempts at the game, and decided to go for this glitch. On his 5th attempt, after many tries in 2-1, he reproduced the glitch done in the TAS and beat the game in 15 minutes. On the same day, Astro was doing more optimized attempts using this route, and in the middle of the run, accidentally warped to the credits in 1-2. With an unintentional new record, TAS sisters went back to the drawing board and discovered that you could warp to the credits as early as the beginning of the first stage. In order to do this new credits warp, Zool has to teeter on an edge and press up. Pressing up affects Zool's animations, and doing this at certain spots causes a credits warp to occur. After this being discovered, a multitude of runners would attempt this new category. As of making this, over 40 runners have achieved times under 10 seconds, and the current record is a two-way tie between Fozon and GoGo TBC, clocking in at 9.84 seconds. There is also a 4-way tie for doing the credits warp blindfolded. Talking to the 8-Bit Beast, who has made the optimized TAS for this run, he stated he wouldn't say 100% for sure, but it looks like Zool is solved. He even wrote a brute force program to try different inputs, which has led to nothing. This may possibly be the shortest and most ridiculous real-time credits warp. Returning to the Mario fever, in 2014, Super Mario Bros. 3 TAS sisters by the name of Lord Tom and Tompa would release a TAS that beat the game in under 3 minutes. But how? The intended any percent route is grabbing whistles in World 1 and warping to World 8. Thanks to previously mentioned TASers and others such as Rat926 and HHS, it was found that 7-1 could be used to reach the credits. To wrap your head around what is going on in this run, let me read Lord Tom's explanation of this TAS. Carefully positioning 3 enemies manipulates the CPU to read an instruction that jumps to the ending. And to explain the glitched pipe at the end, he states, taking a pipe in the wrong direction takes Mario to an invalid area of the map, resulting in a glitch where the CPU tries to read instructions from data representing the expositions of enemies, as well as many other things. During the making of this TAS, these authors helped speedrunners come up with ways to execute this in real time. This route was now using the first whistle to enter World 2, and then using the second whistle to enter World 7. By the time the TAS was released, Produx, Mitch Flowerpower, and Megara1 were able to perform this in real time. With more and more practice, runners were getting comfortable with setting up 7-1 and increasingly heightened the barrier for how fast you had to play the level. By the end of the year, Mitch Flowerpower was able to beat the game in 3 minutes and 11 seconds. Besides optimizing 7-1, another big factor in these runs was how quick the Hammer Bro movements were on the overworld in World 1. This would become increasingly important as the category got more and more optimized. In 2017, Kirua would take a shot and get as low as 3 minutes and 4 seconds. In between 2020 and 2021, Czikubi would shave off even more, achieving a 302.383. Talking to Czikubi, he states that realistically with current strats, the time could be lowered by half a second. But realistically, a 301.9 time would be amazing on its own. Minimal time save can be achieved in World 1, and slight time can be saved by initiating the crash in 7-1 earlier. Czikubi said the 1 in their PB was pretty unlucky and could be 0.2 of a second faster. Moving from one mascot to another, the the second installment of the Kirby series, named Kirby's Adventure, would become a major game of interest among speedrunners over the years. As of 2021, over 100 people have run the any % no major glitches category. But what are the major glitches in this game? Well, that leads us to today's subject. Early in 2012, Mug, yes the same Mug from Super Mario Land, would publish a TAS of Kirby's Adventure that beat the game in under 6 minutes, and beat previous playthroughs by over 30 minutes. This was thanks to a bug discovered by Kirby Muncher that allows you to keep the UFO power-up, which allows you to fly throughout the game. There's actually a separate any % UFO speedrun category that is a few minutes faster than no major glitches. The record is currently held by TheTerrificTracy. Moving on, the game would get stretched apart even further with a new TAS in 2013, lowering the completion time to 35 seconds. I will let the group of TAS authors quickly explain. You rush to the first possible place where you can abuse a game-breaking glitch, which triggers the ending credits by using the stone ability in water. While Stone Kirby will turn back into Kirby upon touching the surface of the water, entering a pool of water from below or from the side causes the game to crash. However, on the last frame before the game crashes, you can press start and a few other buttons to manipulate the game to jump to the credits instead. To summarize this short run, you collect the stone ability, clip into a slope, and perform the right inputs before the game would normally crash. In terms of human execution, Controllerhead would have one of the earliest documented runs using this glitch. His run would clock in at 47 seconds.
47! Ah!
With how tight the run is, the record has only been beaten a few times since. Old School Richard would bring it down to 44 seconds, and Rainvoss on February 21st of 2021, and push it even further to the 41 second mark. Let's now get into what you probably clicked onto this video for. Super Mario World. Quite possibly the most infamous credits warp in speedrunning history. Strap in. I'll try to summarize as much as I can, but this is quite a hefty story. If you would like a more in-depth look at the progression of Super Mario World any %, I recommend my video, The Quest for Sub 1 Minute. In 2014, a player by the name Jeff356 had been heavily researching Super Mario World and how its memory values worked. In July, he started streaming sessions of him trying to run a theorized route he developed that should allow him to make the credits play in the first level of the game. Many of the movements during this route required near, if not perfect precision, and would end with what is called an item swap. An item swap is done by collecting an item off of Yoshi's tongue. In this case, it would be a green shell that was turned into a coin, thanks to a previously spat out red shell. With precise timing and correct inputs, you will observe the coin swap into a chuck and proceed to be consumed by Yoshi. Chucks are technically power-ups, so when Yoshi swallows the chuck, you get a power-up in your item box. With this specific route, it would trigger the credits cutscene instead. On July 28th, this route would finally work to plan, and skip to the credits in just around 5 minutes. This was roughly 5 minutes faster than previously done with other glitches. While my previously mentioned video will do a better job than I can ever do right now, let me briefly explain what would follow. Half a year later, in January 2015, Minecraft YouTuber, and more recently speedrunner, Sethbling would upload a viral video that showed him beating Super Mario World in just under 6 minutes. This would be the first time this credits warp was done on console, due to Jeff being an emulator runner. A few days later, Seth would beat Jeff's record on January 24th, and from there, the rest is history. With getting used to the route and further optimizing it, Seth would further push his time down to 3 minutes and 7 seconds. Shortly after, IsoFreeze would break the 3-minute barrier with a 2:44 by using a slightly faster route. The route would keep rapidly changing and would quickly go below the 2-minute barrier. The route at this point moved where the item swap was to the very end of Yoshi's Island 2 instead of the very beginning. This swap instead used a mushroom instead of a shell turned into a coin. Other challengers would get into the category, such as Carl Sagan 42 and Pangea Panga. By this point, the run was already reaching the 90-second mark. The route would again have multiple changes, and this time even bigger than before. The previous P-switch and mushroom shenanigans were gone. The run was now being done on the Japanese version of the game and would revert to the previous item swap setup. Some of these newer credits warp routes would also utilize more than one controller. It was found that holding down inputs on extra controllers can manipulate the game's memory in relation to warping to the credits. There is a variant of the credits warp route that uses an accessory called a multi-tap that allows up to 4 controllers on a single console. Besides different controllers, the item swap itself was being understood more and more. It was found that pressing the buttons R, L, and X while doing the item swap would guarantee that said swap would work as long as you set up everything else. Seth would dub this Rolex. With the knowledge and controller methods I just mentioned, the time was now being pushed into the 75-second territory, and at this point, a final name would enter the scene. Furious would start doing credits warp attempts and would get really close to Seth. Soon after, Furious would just barely beat Seth's time and would start the beginning of a new era. Furious would use multiple new time saves, including performing the item swap slightly early. This would help him save a couple more seconds, but that wouldn't matter too much with the last iteration of credits warp that was about to come up. Seth would return exactly a year later and bring new interest into the category with a major overhaul to the optimal route. By using more controllers and using their data, you can skip a lot of time spent from setting up the shells which had previously been done the entire time. This would lead to the first sub 1 minute time, with Seth achieving a 54-second run. Seth and Furious would continue to trade records back and forth using this new knowledge. And since June 11th of 2020, Furious has held the fastest completion of Super Mario World in 41.022 seconds. Just like Super Mario World, its half-sequel, Yoshi's Island, would have quite a similar fate in relation to speedrunning. On April 19th of 2015, Carl Sagan 42 posted a video of beating the game in under 5 minutes using a credits warp route never performed in real time previously. The description of Carl's run summarizes this quite well. To perform a credits warp in this game, a glitch by the name Tongue Glitch is used. This causes Yoshi's tongue to stretch infinitely and eats up the game's memory. This glitch can cause the game to execute instructions that can be used to run the credits sequence. Carl also included a Google document in the description that goes into this further. I will link that down below. Just like most first runs on a new route, Carl's run was very unoptimized. The time would be cut dramatically in a short period. The record would be traded between IsoFreeze, Davis, and MT. Davis would get the first time under 3 minutes, and got a 2:44 by the end of the year, on December 30th. Minor optimizations would further happen, and half a year later, in September of 2016, he came back with a 2:42, and in March of 2019, improved with a 2:39. Right after this, a Japanese runner by the name Akasanada would just barely beat MT with a time of 2:38. After this, the category would simmer down for quite a while. In March of 2020, Horror would post a video showing a new route in 1-1. They found a setup that skips having to enter the pipe, which had been in every run since Carl's original performance. This shaves roughly 9 seconds. This would lead to the record being quickly demolished. Icterus 440 would get a 2:35 on March 27th, and MT would return right away with a 2:32. Horror would finally get back to work, and they got a 2:30, a 2:27, and a 2:25. But with further optimizations, they would keep smashing the record, and one more time on June 8th got a 2:19. This is ultimately where the record stands as of making this, and at least 20 people have now beaten Yoshi's Island in under 5 minutes. Teleporting over to more obscure games, let's talk about Rolan's Curse. Released for the Game Boy in 1990, the game is comparable to the Legend of Zelda series. The main complaint of the game is its lack of length. The standard run of this game can be done in 22 minutes, and Altros currently has that record with a 22:20. The game would become even shorter than that though. Published during November of 2016, Thunder Axe 31 would release a TAS finishing the game in under 5 minutes. Instead of beating the final boss to finish the game, the first boss is able to accomplish the same thing. If the final hit of the boss is dealt while your health reaches 0, the game will think that the last boss was beaten instead. While the final trick is frame perfect, the run is short enough that a human was more than capable of reproducing it. One of the earliest instances of this being pulled off was a 5-minute and 23-second run by ToonJ in May of 2018. While this game is quite obscure, it would get optimized a couple more times, mostly by optimizing the boss kill. A month later, Wolf Merrick would finish a time with a 5:13, and 2.5 years later, on January 5th of 2021, Kozex would pull out a sub 5 with a 4:57. He stated some time saves were left, but was not interested in pursuing it further. While I would like to break down more games one by one, for the sake of time, that's unfortunately it for today. That is not it for the video though. There's 2 more things that I want to talk about. Firstly, I would like to take a look at 2 amazing accomplishments that Sethbling has done over the past year. Sethbling has created 2 different challenges that involve doing multiple Mario credits warps back to back. The first one is Mario 15 Minute, where the goal is to do credits warp in Mario 3, World, Land 2, and World 2 in under 15 minutes. On August 20th of 2020, he would beat his own challenge with a 14:51. His second challenge would be an even bigger feat. You may be familiar with Super Mario Hour, where the goal is to beat Mario 1, 2, Lost Levels, 3, World, and 64 in under an hour. I recommend watching Pixel Perfect Run's video if you want a more in-depth history of that. Sethbling took this to the extreme and wanted to do Super Mario Hour, but instead of Super Mario 64, he added in both Mario Lands and Yoshi's Island. How is that possible in under an hour, you say? Well, with the power of Credits Warp, Seth would beat Mario 1, Lost Levels, Mario 2, Mario 3, Mario Land, Mario World, Mario Land 2, and Mario World 2 in 58 minutes and 36 seconds. It's safe to say that Seth has quite the endurance and can run any Mario game of his choice, whether beating it as intended or through warping to the credits. The entire time, we have been talking about how TAS runs have taught humans how to break games in ways never thought before. This is not always the case though. Sometimes TASes break the game in such tricky ways that humans may not be able to ever pull it off, or at least in the same fashion that the TAS did. For example, most people don't know this, but Super Mario Bros. 2 actually has a credits warp of its own. The only reason why many may not know this is due to the fact that in its current state, a human cannot get even close to replicating it. This TAS was uploaded by Maru in June of 2019. As of making this, not much further has been developed, at least publicly. Maru stated, "This video may pave the way to future investigation that might lead to more realistic setups." A lot of now viable credits warps were in a similar state at one point or another, so it's always possible that my words here will be outdated. Continuing with Mario, Mario 3 has an even faster task that I didn't mention earlier. There is a bug that involves giving the game a rapid amount of inputs, which allows the game to be beaten right from the title screen, finishing in just under a second from startup. Good luck trying to beat this as a human. One last interesting task I wanted to share is Kirby Superstar. Instead of playing all the intended mini-games, Master June instead abuses a glitch involving ladders that allows you to take over the entire game and leads to a 23-second completion. Before I end this video, let me say one more thing. Of course I didn't talk about every possible game today. I presume that many would enjoy a 10-hour video going over every credits warp in the world, but unfortunately I have to focus on being a copy of Summoning Salt. I will quickly give some honorable mentions though. Pokemon trading card game on the Game Boy Color is pretty self-explanatory. It's the Pokemon card game on the Game Boy. Using arbitrary code execution, runners have shaved over 40 minutes off of the intended run. The current record is a 3 minute and 23 second time by 000AJ. There was also a sequel on the Game Boy Advance that can be beaten in quite a similar way. The current record on that version is a 223 by Shirkle. Going over to Super Nintendo RPG titles, The Secret of Mana has its own credits warp that is dubbed Magic%. The record in that is 8 minutes and 12 seconds by Overfind VIP. Lufia 2 also has a quick credits warp of its own, clocking in at only 51 seconds by Happy Squid 89. I wish I could keep going, but there are so many more that I could list. Final Fantasy, the Zelda games, and everything else in between. I could very well make a part 2 down the road, and let me know in the comments what game you wish I covered, and we very well might come back here once again and talk about some more credits warps. You never know when another game may be broken, and who knows, pick up a new game and mess with it. You could be the next person to make a major discovery that breaks the speedrun community. Thank you so much for watching.